Welcome to today's presentation. We're a panel of young astronomers, and we're going to tell everyone about our experiences in astronomy as young people, how we got to where we are today, and what we want to do in the future. So I'm just going to run and flip the slides here. So who are we? You might notice the slides up there. That's me and my sisters. And I started from a young age. I'm very lucky to have two supportive parents. And the summer before I went into kindergarten, my mom would bring me to the Seymour Planetarium at the Springfield Science Museum, not Springfield, Vermont, but Springfield, Massachusetts, every single day, every day. And I would just love it. I mean, it would be daytime, the clouds would be out, it would be raining, but in the planetarium, it didn't matter. The lights would go off and the stars would come out, and I owe my love of the planetarium to the planetarium educator, Jack Magus, who I think many of you know. He was here at the swap tables this morning, and the way that he told the story made me fall in love with the stars. And even to this day, I mean, I love the Seymour Planetarium. I give shows there now as a planetarium educator. Jack's my coworker now, and I just love it. So from there, my dad reached out to Jack Magus. He goes, what else can we do? I mean, there has to be a club around here, and of course there is, the Springfield Stars Club. And we joined the Springfield Stars, we learned all about it. And in the second grade, I decided to start a double star program. I had an 8-inch job, and I would set it up in my driveway, and me and my dad would go out. And every month, we'd have 20 double stars to find. We'd have to split them into 2, 3, maybe 4 stars. And it took me 2 years to complete. And I learned the night sky like the back of my hand, and I just loved it. And I mean, everyone in the Springfield Stars was just so supportive. I mean, Richard Sanderson, he's the now president of the Springfield Stars. And when I completed that program, he gave me a certificate. He showed the entire club. I mean, that made me feel special, proud to have completed such a big program and proud to have learned the sky like that. So from there, I went to Stellafane. This year is my 10th year of coming here. And I've just had a lot of fun since then. I have a club in my high school, a space and astronomy club. We have similar ones in the middle schools and the elementary schools, so it's just been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed it. Chija, this is the first time we're all kind of sitting down together. We've been communicating via email for months now, but this is the first time we're all together in one room, believe it or not. And she's going to school for astrophysics. If you flip the slide, you'll see some photos of her. Two slides. Sorry about that. So if you want to tell us about your adventures and learning the professional side of this.
Yeah, again, hi, I'm Chija. I'm currently a rising second-year PhD student in astronomy at Harvard University. And yeah, I guess I'll talk a little bit about how I got my start in astronomy as well. I'll say that my journey also started in a planetarium. So I remember my parents taking me to our local planetarium. By the way, I'm from Detroit, Michigan originally. And yeah, there's not very many good night skies around there, but the planetariums are really beautiful, and I really fell in love with the night sky that way. And then really it was my middle school science teacher that really, I think, put that idea, that seed in my head that astronomy can be a career. Astronomy is a really great place of discovery. So for all you middle and high school educators, again, the work that you do is really important because, again, that's where my love for astronomy really started. My middle school science teacher had a science club. Again, a lot of I think American high schools, or middle schools and high schools, astronomy is not really officially part of the curriculum a lot of the time. So a lot of it was learning in extracurricular activities like that science club. And then yeah, my parents are also super supportive, bought me lots of books about space, and I was reading a lot Stephen Hawking's books, Carl Sagan's books, growing up in high school. And then finally, I went to college at Harvard and again found out that there was this amazing astronomy program. I'd gone in just as a pure physics major originally, but then found all of this amazing community of astronomers and just had a really wonderful mentor for my first research project in exoplanets. And yeah, that's why that really put me on the path to grad school after that. So again, happy to talk a little bit about some of my explorations in grad school and in college, and just what studying astronomy academically is like.
Yeah, thank you. And Eli, if you want to go next.
Sure. So my name's Eli Goldfine. I'm an associate member of the Springfield Telescope Makers. And this year I'm going into 8th grade. But when I got started in astronomy, I don't really remember exactly when it was, but my dad says it was around when I was 3, and we were living in Manhattan on the Upper East Side. And so not great skies there, but the Amateur Astronomers Association, which Michael O'Gara, who's another Stellafane member, was the president of at one point, their organization would have these moon observing nights in John Jay Park, which I guess my dad took me to a couple times, and I guess that really just got me hooked on astronomy. And then a couple years ago, after being in my local astronomy club, the Westchester Astronomers, for a couple years, I was volunteering in their booth at NEAF, and the other person who was with me in the booth volunteering said, "You have to go to Stellafane." And so that was 3 years ago, and so I went to Stellafane and I said, "Wow, this is great." And then Francis O'Reilly said, "Eli, you're gonna make a telescope." And and so now I'm making a telescope, and I've done some other stuff for my astronomy club. I've run their outreach program, and I'm also the webmaster for the new website that we just launched last week, I guess. So yeah, that's my story.
Yep. Thank you, Eli. I had the pleasure of attending his space and astronomy trivia the other day about the McGregor, and boy, those questions stumped me. My sister, who you might see in the crowd, she's wearing the yellow shirt over there, she's 3 years younger than me, going into freshman year of high school, and your questions were tough, and she just ground her own mirror, and she knew some of them, but not quite all, so good job putting that together. But next up we have John, and this morning I attended, up at the McGregor again, the Kerbal Spaceflight Simulator.
Kerbal Space Program used to teach physics. So I didn't actually make slides because I totally forgot. That's my bad. And I didn't get started off nearly as early as Eli here. My introduction to science, or to space rather, was I had a little tiny telescope, and I remember pointing it up at the sky and seeing Jupiter for the first time, and the moons of Jupiter in a little 1.5-inch refractor, and I didn't think that was possible. So that was my first space memory. And then I got really into a game called Kerbal Space Program, which teaches you to build, design, and fly spacecraft in a realistic simulation. And I was playing with this, and I was like, I love this. How can I get more of this? Anyway, now I design spacecraft for Blue Origin. I moved out to Seattle, Washington about 3 years ago to follow my dream of actual rocket science. But my journey into astronomy was a little bit different. One day I was at college. It was the beginning of the semester of college. August 24, 2017. Anyone know what that day was? The Great Solar Eclipse. And I was in Vermont that day. We had a partial eclipse there. I set up my little 1.5-inch refractor to project an image of the eclipse onto the ground so that as people walked by, they could see the eclipse. And one of my acquaintances who I barely knew walked by and said, "Oh, I didn't know you are interested in astronomy. Would you like to help me restart the astronomy club?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely, let's do it." So, 3 weeks later, I was president of the astronomy club at my college. You guys know how it works. And had to learn the concepts of astronomy so that I could teach them to the people who were in the club and we were trying to get into the club. The club had a number of telescopes that had already been donated. So we were blessed with the hardware and got to learn how to use it and teach other people. So I spent the next 3 years of college being active in that club as the president and learning about telescopes. When I moved out to Seattle, Washington, I've become involved with the astronomical group out there, and I'm now the equipment manager for them as well.
Well, thank you, John. And I have to say that flight simulator, I killed my little green alien maybe 5 different times before I gave up today. I mean, I'm taking physics and calculus in the fall for my senior year of high school. And you learn the math behind everything, but actually understanding what's going on behind the math is important. I mean, I'm sure that you learned that doing your research projects at Harvard, but being in high school, it's really hard to see everything at that level. So I'm glad that you're doing your work with that. So can you hit the next slide? So we're young people in astronomy, and I want to go into astrophysics when I go into college in science communications, and everyone here today at the panel has already done outreach work and has worked to better the future of astronomy. But today we're going to talk about how. If you can hit the next slide. Here are a few events that I've held in recent months. The one on the left is one that I held at my high school, my Space and Astronomy Club at the high school and the middle school. We kind of worked together for a few events. Called up the local Girl Scouts, and we had them observe the moon and the different planets from our front fields. And the entry fee was a canned food item, and it was just a blast. And one thing that I've learned over the years is that everyone is interested in astronomy from a certain level. I mean, one story that my dad told the other day that really stuck with me that I forgot because I was maybe 7, 8 years old, was one day we went to a Springfield Stars Club meeting, and we brought my cousin with us. She's the same age as me. She didn't have a telescope. Her parents knew nothing about astronomy. She's never even looked at the moon before. And we went to a Springfield Stars Club meeting in Massachusetts, and Richard Sanderson had his telescope set up at the entranceway, pointing at, I think, Jupiter that night. And I was looking at Jupiter, at the cloud bands, the Galilean moons, and I called my cousin over. And she was wondering, what is this big deal? What's this random tube doing on the sidewalk? And she looked in, and that was her first time ever looking through a telescope. She called them the stripes of Jupiter, and she realized that the stars around the planet were actually moons. She couldn't believe it. I mean, the entire night she was into the talk that was given that night, the planetarium show. She went up on the rooftop observatory and was into that, and she even went home, and my aunt and uncle still tell me how much she enjoyed that night, and now she has a telescope of her own that she uses. She lives out in Somers, Connecticut, and she uses it all the time, and she calls me up and tells me all about it. And it's just a lot of fun. And from these events, I've learned that just people love the night sky. And it's about getting that first spark of interest that's difficult. I mean, everyone loves technology nowadays, social media. Like, how can we break through the haze that our iPhones have put over our eyes and force them to look upwards? So I write a monthly space astronomy newsletter called The Starry Scoop. I've written it for about 5 years now. But recently, I've expanded into a podcast. I air it on YouTube, I put it up on social media, and I found that that's a way to get people interested, speaking their language of social media, and interviewing people and interviewing kids my age about their experiences in astronomy, which is what I've been doing with the show. I mean, we all remember the total solar eclipse that dazzled our skies in April. April 8th, my family and I, we traveled up to Vermont, up in Fairfax. But my high school club stayed at the high school. It was a 97% partial eclipse. We set up a C-Star smart telescope in the front field, and we passed out total solar eclipse glasses, solar glasses. And they had a huge event. I swear the entire school was there from the pictures I saw. And the news showed up, kids got interviewed, the vice president of the club loved it. And with the C-Star, they all had this, the sun on their phones. They had a time lapse of the entire eclipse, and it was just amazing. And the club members still tell me to this day that that was their favorite event, hands down. I mean, they got interviewed by the news. They loved that. I mean, kids love the attention. But yeah, that's just my experience and what I want to continue doing in the future, sparking that initial interest in astronomy. I mean, many of us have stories of a comet that got us involved, an eclipse, lunar, solar, but that's just my plan. Next slide.
Yeah, this is my slide. So I wanted to also sort of talk about like the future of astronomy from a much like a higher point of view, from looking at the whole nation and our place in astronomy. So I wanted to point out some of, so I think Mitchell talked about some of these a little bit during Hartness House, but there's a lot of current and next generation observatories that we're really excited about, including the Roman Telescope, potentially Habitable Worlds Observatory. Again, you guys all probably know about James Webb, and then also GMT, which is currently in construction. But I really do want to emphasize that, again, these next generation observatories are going to be the tools that the next generation of astronomers use. Probably, again, some of these are out in like the 2030s, so it's going to be like the kids of today who are going to be using these observatories in the future. And these really require, again, consistent, stable support, funding-wise, to maintain. So, and I just wanted to emphasize that, at this time in our nation's history, it's really important to keep our support for science, keep our support for all of these different departmental programs that support the science that next generation's astronomers will use. I also wanted to emphasize that, again, a lot of these organizations also provide fellowships for graduate students. So, again, I think that's really important to encourage like low-income students to pursue, again, academic studies and enable them. And a lot of those people are enabled by these graduate fellowships that are provided by like NSF and NASA. Yeah, so that's just my little spiel again about supporting science in the U.S. and keeping this like U.S. astronomy tradition strong.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, without the resources of the support to study the science, it can't be done. So that's a very important topic to discuss. Next slide, please. Eli, if you want to.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to come a little bit from a different angle here, not necessarily about why we should do outreach, but how. And to do that, I have this story. So I switched schools when I was going into 5th grade, and so they had this like team building, like camping trip type thing, and I brought my 4-inch Cassegrain telescope. It was like one of those orange Celestrons, and so I had it out and I pointed it at Saturn. And one of my new classmates' parents came over, and they saw it, and they looked through the telescope, they saw Saturn, they said, wow, so you drew that on the front of the telescope, huh? And then I was like, no, it's definitely real. And then I moved the telescope slightly to prove it, so it went across the field of view, and then he started crying because he thought it was so beautiful how he could see Saturn through the telescope. And I think that's really amazing about just in general about outreach. But I think it's very important to keep that same tradition because with smart telescopes and the rise of smart telescopes like the C-Star, don't get me wrong, it generates very high quality, very good images for the time it's taking and also the cost of the whole unit. But I was at another outreach event in November, and I had like 3 C-Stars set up from my club's collection of them. And I showed like 10 people, here, look at the screen, that's what this is seeing. And I go, oh, okay. And so it's not really the same when you're just showing someone something on a screen, or like some smart telescopes have like fake eyepieces where you look into a screen. It's not really the same. So I think even though smart telescopes may make outreach more efficient, I think it's so much more powerful, and it'll help Caitlin's mission of getting that first spark that you were talking about more if we're using visual telescopes. So that's just something I wanted to mention as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's a great approach. I mean, I'm a little bit biased. I can't do astrophotography to save my life. My mom has a sea star that she uses all the time. And I mean, I love it. It's a great way to share the night sky. It's easy. But to have that real-time view of the night sky, I mean, a lot of people don't understand how impactful that can be. And thank you for mentioning that again. And John, if you want to talk about your thoughts.
Yeah, I have a thought on that. So we talk a lot about visual astronomy. Visual astronomy is when your telescope is taking the waves and you yourself, you're looking at it. We talk about astrophotography, which is when you have a camera set up and you are using the tools and processing the images. And I've always wondered where C-STAR and dwarf and similar telescopes like that fit in, because like Eli was talking about, it's not the same thing. There's a lot of reward when you put the effort into the visual observing. There's a lot of reward when you put in the effort for the astrophotography. And I almost want to call these new telescopes digital astronomy, because the processing is all being done. It's kind of a gap. It's kind of halfway between an image you found online and the image that you yourself processed, because the effort that you're putting in it's a different amount of effort. It's a different scale of effort than astrophotography. It is very impressive to be able to look at an image and say, oh, my telescope took that. But it is different than being able to say, well, I understand my tools well enough to be able to process this image. So I think, to me, to call it digital astronomy is a helpful distinction.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd love to have the time to understand post-processing and how to image. I think that's a great art. But again, I don't want to lose the raw setting up a telescope and just looking up. I mean, here at Stellafane, they do a great job of promoting that with the Olympics, the binocular Olympics, the telescope Olympics. Phil Harrington gave a talk right before us, and every year he puts together the binocular observing Olympics for 7 years. I have 7 pins, and I do it every year with my father and my sister, and we've learned the night sky and some objects, some asterisms that we've never heard of before. I mean, this year we were looking for a boot up in the sky, and what the heck? We found it and we completed it, but it's just a lot of fun. And another thing that I want to mention that I was mentioning a bit earlier is that the astronomy community, I've learned throughout the years, helps each other. Everyone is just so nice and so helpful. I mean, throughout my journey, I mean, Jack Magus at the planetarium, Rich Sanderson with the Springfield Stars Club, even Jenny, she hired me at the Springfield Science Museum for as a planetarium educator. Dave Kelly, I don't know if he's here, but he's helping me grind a mirror to build a telescope in the future. I mean, these people have just given up so much for others, and they just take time out of their lives to help. And I think that's a great thing about the astronomy community. You were talking about your middle school, high school teachers starting clubs. I mean, it's a great thing that we have here, and we have to just reach out and find more young people and get that initial spark of interest. And if you guys don't want to add anything more, we do have a short Q&A section for anyone who does have questions, and we can answer as young people in astronomy. So if you want to flip the slide, and if anyone has any questions that we can give our take on, would be excellent.
Can I just borrow a microphone for a minute? I'm just the introducer again, but I want to bring forward the president of the Springfield telescope makers, who wants to just say quickly a thank you to you folks for bringing this to us. And it is something unique, and it is something that's a great contribution, and I think we all want you to know that right now. There'll be more time for questions, but here's Cecilia.
Yes, thank you so much, all of you, for being brave enough to be up here and in front of all of us and tell us your story. Of course, I hope everyone has been reading their program online. This year, our convention is dedicated to the youth in astronomy, the enthusiastic next generation, and we have them right here. So, and I know there's a lot of other young people here at the convention that are also in that category. I've been talking to them and learning their stories this week. And Caitlin, your sister, whose name just went right out of my brain. I'm sorry. What's her name? What's your sister's name again?
Christina.
Christina. Thank you, Christina. I left my brain at the optical competition last night. Anyway, but yeah, thank you. You are such an inspiration to all of us. You know, we came to astronomy in a similar way as you did, through an adult or organization that sparked our interest. And then, so I have a question for you. So we all do outreach on some level, and we're always trying to engage children. You guys all know I'm a teacher, so, but we're not your age anymore, and I wonder if there's like one key piece of advice that you could give to us adults who are trying to, you know, pass on our passion and interest in astronomy in a way that kids will respond to. Some piece of advice on that.
Give the microphone back to whoever gave it to you.
Okay.
I think it's really important to show kids just how vast the universe is. I did the solar system walk today and yesterday throughout Stellafane. It's a scale walkable model of the solar system. The sun is the size of a beach ball, Jupiter is the size of a golf ball, and the Earth is the size of a pinhead. And I've given solar system walks at many events over the years, at the Girl Scout event I mentioned. And even when you're observing a simple object like Jupiter through a telescope, to understand what you're looking at, like, yes, they know that it's Jupiter, but what is Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system? A gas giant. What is the Great Red Spot? A raging storm on its surface, over 300 years old. I mean, for them to understand just the size and the scale of the universe and what they're looking at is important. Because, everyone likes to look at Saturn and its rings, but understanding what it is, the stories behind it, to have cool, fun facts to share. I found that kids really enjoyed that, and I'm sure that you guys have had similar experiences as well.
I think the vastness is very important, and the attribute that I would focus on is the accessibility. We've told stories of someone who looked through and saw Saturn for the first time and thought, oh, that's just a printed image. The speaker before us talked about the importance of bringing astronomy to people. Be where the people are. Don't try to get people to come to you. So I was talking with friends in other circles recently. I said, oh, I am part of the astronomy group. And they said, oh, there's a Seattle astronomy group? I never knew. And it just makes me realize everyone, I think you said, everyone is interested, but people don't know. So I think the accessibility, just setting up a telescope on the side of on the sidewalk, not just to get the young people, but to get everyone, just to get the word out there that, yes, this is an art form that is active. Yes, there are people near you who engage with it. We want people to know, and if they know and aren't interested, that's fine. We just want people to know.
Yeah, I guess I've mostly done outreach for, I think, a slightly older demographic, so like high school to college age. And I think for kids at that kids, young adults at that age, it's really important to try to make it, I think, part of their like social life. Again, these young adults are always really busy. Like I recently graduated from college. Again, you always feel like you're, running around trying to figure out a bunch of different things. But like, I remember going to if anyone's been to the Exploratorium in San Francisco, they do like science at night. So at like 9 p.m., they have like lots of young adults come in, and it's like marketed as a social activity where you can also play with all the different like scientific exhibits they have. So again, I kind of like the idea that we call them star parties, because they can be parties. It's places where you meet people and socialize. And I think sort of emphasizing that for young adults, I think is really important, because then it puts it as part of their social life schedule, and I think it incorporates a large group of them much more easily.
One thing I think that's super important when we do outreach, I do a lot of outreach, and what I usually do is I have like a presentation before we go out and we use the telescopes. But I think a lot of times what happens is maybe someone who's doing outreach thinks, like this presentation, they'll learn so much and they'll have some context before they observe. But the thing is, what they're coming for is they want the experience of looking through a telescope. And I think if you make the presentation too dull, that can flatten out the thing. So I think it's really important to really keep it quick and entertaining. And what I do when I do outreach is usually there's like some little kids there, and I let them ask questions as I'm talking, and then I can respond to them. And I think just not just displaying the facts as is, but kind of crafting a story around it and humanizing it a little bit is very important for people to be more interested and impacted by the entire experience.
Yeah, I think that's great, and you bring up a great point. People want to be interested in what they're learning. I have a high school space and astronomy club again, and we meet once a month for an hour after school. And I've learned that kids do not like to hear random facts about random thing in the sky. They don't. They do that all day at school. So every club meeting, I call over a club member, and I go, do you want to give a presentation at the next club meeting for about 20, 30 minutes about a subject of your choosing? So our vice president, his name is Andy, and he borrows a C-Star Smart telescope. And he goes observing with our club telescopes, but the C-Star is compact, it's easy to use, and he loves it. It's a very accessible way to explore the night sky, because he doesn't have a telescope of his own. And he gave a presentation on it one club meeting, and it was something that he was interested in and that he wanted to share with others. And I think that's a great way to keep people entertained, even at club meetings where some people can just drone on about random facts about a random star in the sky. But I think giving people the opportunity to learn stuff for themselves and to share it with others, even if they're amateurs, even if they've never looked through a telescope of their own, to let them learn and share, it gives them the opportunity to fall in love with the night sky and astronomy itself.
Yeah, I guess I'll also add hands-on demonstrations. Like anything hands-on with props has been really successful for high schoolers and undergrads. Again, I was teaching a undergrad class, and I was talking, I think, about the lunar phases, and I was drawing the equations with the ecliptic and stuff. I could see everyone's eyes glaze over, and I was like, you know what, actually, let me do the demo first, where someone holds a light bulb, and that's the sun, and someone else walks around with little moon, and then that, I think, and then explaining the trigonometry after that was much easier. So yeah, definitely recommend that.
So that's our take on that. If anyone else, any more questions? Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say, as an elder, and the elders here, many of us are worried about the younger generation. You, gentlemen and ladies, give us so much that is good for us to see. And I want to thank you before I ask my question. 50s, when I was in school, everything in biology, physics, astronomy, medicine has changed, and most of it is no longer valid. We were told that it was impossible to clone people in biology and proved why not. So at your place where you are now, which is so new, are you looking back at things that you would like to investigate because you're not so sure they might be valid? Does that make sense? Or looking ahead to more validate things that you're not sure of that you've seen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I focus on more just astronomy basics, just observing the night sky, teaching people about my experiences, and just sharing the love of astronomy with others. Stuff in astronomy has changed dramatically within the past few decades, and I do hope to study that in college when I get there. I'm in my senior year of high school now. I'm not sure if you two have experienced anything like that out in college and the workforce.
I'll say a more general note. Someone once told me that ideas are like pieces of paper. They're not your identity. Never make your identity an idea. Instead, it's a piece of paper. I've got lots of pieces of paper in here. And every idea that I hold, I put there for a reason. And sometime an idea is going to come along that is incompatible with an idea that I have. And if it's part of my identity, I'm going to really fight and say, no, this thing that I believe, I can't give it up because it's my identity. But if it's my piece of paper, then I say, hey, this piece of paper has this validity, and this one has a lot more validity. Okay, we're going to throw away this old idea, take this new idea. So I think it's important to be flexible with what we believe and the ideas that we hold. And if something comes along and it's interesting, and it's like, this challenges my beliefs, this is contrary to what I was taught growing up, it's like, okay, well, that doesn't make it less valid. It just makes it contrary to what I believe. Let's look at it. Let's see where the validity lies.
Yeah, so my area of research is planet formation and origins of life, and that field has changed very, very dramatically. And there are many opinions, I think, and theories that go around that sphere. So I think the best way, honestly, to stay open-minded about different ideas is just to talk to scientists that I disagree with, or disagree with my advisor, and I think that's a really healthy form of, again, keeping your eyes open. You don't necessarily have to end the conversation by agreeing with them, but at least considering those ideas, I think is a really good part of also questioning your own thought process, just like John said. Again, why do I hold these ideas? What are the assumptions here that I made sort of implicitly, or just had been I'd heard about at some point, but then hadn't really thought about more deeply. But yeah, origins of life is a really exciting field of research right now, where again we're questioning everything that we thought we knew, and keep an eye out.
Where do you sit? Where do you sit in that thought of origins of life? Astronomical.
Yeah, that's a good question. So mostly I focus on, my specific research is on looking at how chemical elements necessary for life, or at least the ones we think are necessary for life, how they get onto planets. And I think that, we've discovered, if anybody's keeping up with exoplanet science, we've discovered more than 5,000 planets now, and there are all kinds of different distances from their star, different sizes, different weather on them. So I think that there's just such a diversity of planets out there that, I really think we shouldn't rule out that there might be a diversity in life and pathways to life. So I think that my personal opinion, this does not reflect Harvard University or my advisor necessarily, but I think that, again, with current origins of life research, we can look for pathways, potential viable pathways to life, again, starting from abiotic materials, but that doesn't necessarily mean like that's exactly what happened on Earth or exactly what happened on other planets, but it does give us information about what is, like, how common it might be, or again, what kinds of possibilities there are. Yeah.
Obviously I'm not in college or anything, but I can still speak a little bit to this because I've done a little bit of research projects at the John McCarthy Observatory, which Cecilia and Katie are involved in. So we were thinking about a new project to do a couple months ago, and one of the ideas was we're gonna like point and shoot at a random area of the sky for 20 hours and try to find a new planetary nebula. And then it ended up being, let's investigate Gaia candidates for gravitationally lensed quasars. So you can see kind of the development of that, what the project is over the course of time. So I think it's not really like, you can't just say, okay, I don't think, unless you have like a good factual basis, you can't just say, I want to find a different cause of redshift. I don't think the light's being stretched. I think there's something else. You can't just go out and say that if you don't really have a thesis. So it's not like I want to disprove that. It's more like I'm thinking about this, which has been proven, and how can I piece these things together to form a more coherent hypothesis.
And I think that's great. Thank you for bringing up the different approaches to that. And I think, honestly, it just has to do with the love of learning. No matter what you're learning about, no matter what new discoveries, it's just you love exploring new things. And so no matter if we find life out there or not, we're trying to find it. I mean, we're going that extra step of learning and discovering more. Does anyone else have any more questions? Yes.
Well, a comment, you brought up the importance of maintaining funding. And everybody in this room, of course, is on the same page with regard to this. But the work you're doing on outreach is super important because this is helping people get personally understanding the connection, their connection to science and scientific research. I just wanted to give a shout out to an organization called Stand Up for Science, which I'm involved with. It's formed in March by graduate students. And it's been very active and very effective in educating, calling out to policymakers. They've been very responsive with letters to the editor, opportunities for scientists and others to sign on to these letters. They've heard about the Bethesda Declaration, also the NSF Declaration, the NASA Voyager Declaration. These are all letters from workers at these organizations speaking out. People can sign on. So Stand Up for Science, you can see it online. It's organized by graduate students in March. It's doing great things.
Yeah, thank you so much for shouting that out. Again, yeah, I think that as scientists, we have a responsibility really to do outreach because, again, we're funded by taxpayer money, so those taxpayers should definitely be able to see, again, all of the things they're helping to support and all the things that we want to give back. And again, I also want to thank all of you, again, for engaging your communities. You know, I think, again, academics, I think we could definitely, as a whole, we can do more with outreach, but again, places like Stellafane really help engage communities and, again, see the value and see what we're doing. So thank you.
On a smaller level, I just want to add in something here. I've seen a lot of helpful ideas and just stuff come out from my local community. When I was in middle school, I had a middle school space and astronomy club, which is still active. My sister was the president last year. And one of my friends, who was a fellow middle schooler, he approached me and he goes, my father, what used to be a member of the Springfield Stars Club, and back in the day, he built his own telescope. He ground his own mirror. He did woodworking, so he built his own telescope. and he would like to donate it to your middle school. And the community kind of came together, and he donated us the telescope. And we still have that. The mirror was a bit dusty, so we carefully cleaned it. It was a nerve-wracking experience. And we still use that to this day. It's an 8-inch Dobsonian. We use it at all our star parties. We'll do stuff with just our clubs, with just the school, with the entire town, local towns. And I think it shows just on a smaller level how communities can really come together and support one another in just science and the love of the sky. I mean, we all share the same sky, so why not enjoy it together?
Over the past 10 years or so, I've heard people mention many times about the graying of amateur astronomy, which basically means the average age of a club member keeps rising as fewer young people come in to replace the ones that leave the club due to death or old age or whatever. And I don't know, I have a hunch that that trend is changing, but and I think folks like you are the driving force behind that change. And I just wondered if you had any sense of, that we're turning a corner and going back the other way, or to correct that problem, so this hobby lives on forever.
I think definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in my town, in my local community. I think the one thing that I always try to remember is that kids my age, in high school, even middle school, their number one priority in life is school. They have to get the grades. All my friends have a job, and I begged some of the high school astronomy club members to come up to Stellafane this year. And they wanted to, believe me, they tried. They talked to their parents, they talked to their bosses, but they couldn't get out of work. They had to study for final exams, take the SATs, the ACTs, and they just couldn't get up here. So it's not that kids don't want to be here and don't want to participate in astronomy. It's just really hard, and I think that this is one thing I'm working on, is bringing it to them. We have a lot of events, observing events, solar events, night sky observing events at the high school and at local parts of my town. And that's just an easy way for people to just step outside and look up. My sister and I, we put on the bike trail in our town, a solar system walk. We drew with chalk the planets on the bike trail, and we took a walk along. It was a scale model of the solar system, so it kind of demonstrated the distances between the planets, so they were learning as we took a walk. We shared fun facts, and there were hundreds of kids, and at the end of the walk, we came to a clearing, and we had telescopes set up to observe the moon and the different planets. So we observed what we were just learning about. And having this ability to go to an event right in our town, in the center of town, is just great. So I don't think that people don't want to be involved. It's just we have to bring it to them. And it's getting harder nowadays to kind of break away from the screens, and we have to approach from a different angle. And I don't know if you guys want to add into this.
I'll talk specifically about the graying within, not astronomy, but within amateur telescope making in particular. If you look at old photos from Stellafane, look at photos from the 80s, you see a lot of brown beards. A lot of people, a lot of men out there, young men, building their telescopes because that was the way to get a good telescope, is you make it yourself. And that's changed. Now there are a lot of decent commercial telescopes. There's a lot of used telescopes if you want to fix something up. So it is easier to get a good telescope by buying one rather than by making it. So the economics have shifted. And with that, we see a shift in the amateur telescope making community. Because the people who make telescopes now, in my experience, tend to be people who have already gotten into astronomy and know they love astronomy, and now they're interested in expanding their love of astronomy and going deeper. They're building telescopes, they're trying to make instruments that are better than what you can buy easily. So I'm not worried about the graying of amateur telescope making to the same extent that I was. But on that note, I will point out this group, the Stellafane convention, is put on entirely by volunteers, of which I am one. I fly in from Seattle every year, a week early, and volunteer my time and help the club get ready for convention. So maybe you're an amateur telescope maker, maybe you're not, maybe you're old, maybe you're young, doesn't matter. Email the club, come up early, help us get ready for convention. We're always looking for volunteers, both before convention and throughout the rest of the year. There's a lot of property here, and we always need help. So I'll put that out there.
Yeah, I can go now. I think, John makes a good point there. I think amateur telescope making, he's correct. It's not the best way to get the best telescope. Even though you can make amazing telescopes, you can get, you can't really replicate the same optics, but you can get really good telescopes for not a lot of money on the regular market. And I think I agree that it's not economical anymore to build a telescope for actually observing, and I think many of the people at Stellafane who are building telescopes, they're building it, and I just realized I'm saying the same thing you're saying, but the thought came into my head. I'm sorry. They're building it more of as an art, and they've been into it for a while, and it's they're trying to perfect the same thing and that they've been doing for so long, and they're trying to get better optics, better precision mounts, and I think it's a never-ending quest for that, and I think that's why so many people really like it. But the thing is, if people don't start early, they're never gonna, maybe they make one telescope, but they're never just gonna keep going, which is what many of the people who are at Stellafane have done. And so I think that it's really more of a quest to always towards perfection for telescope making, and that's what has been done here for 100 years, beginning with Russell Porter. And I think another reason that I think amateur telescope making should be preserved is to remember the history of those original people. They're right there. They can't be forgotten because they are doing the same exact thing we're doing here, and I think that's really important to keep the legacy of that.
Next question, yep.
First of all, I think that you four are a pretty good example of why amateur telescope making should be preserved. You four yourselves are good examples. What I see is everybody talks about clubs, whether this one or the ones you're founding in your middle schools, high schools, colleges, whatever. Everybody's talking about clubs, and the difference between the emphasis of a club and a school. A club supports the interest and the curiosity of its members. And a school needs to do that at a more formal level, but doesn't always succeed. And I think maybe we should all ask the question, what can the movement of clubs and amateur activities in astronomy, telescope making, or any other field that deserves to be perpetuated? What can the club attitude contribute to the schools that might make them better? Any ideas?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I have a story from when I was in 6th grade. I was in what we call the intermediate school at Westfield. We're kind of weird. We have 2 middle schools, an intermediate and then middle school. And we had a STEM week. And so we didn't go to classes the entire week. We stayed in our science class. And the subject that week was space exploration and traveling to the moon. I loved it. I'll just put it there. And the entire week was geared around what I loved and what I've been doing like as a hobby for years before. And what you're talking about, getting clubs involved in schools. I had a teacher approach me that week on Monday, and she said, "Hey, I know you have a telescope. I know that you know about the planets, about the moon. Wednesday night, why don't we throw a star party?" She didn't know at the time it was called star party. She just said, "Bring your telescope out on the field and let's look up." And we had dozens of kids show up with their parents, of course. And it kind of stemmed from that STEM week put on by the school. So rather than the clubs coming and interacting with the schools to get astronomy started, it was the school that got the club started. And I'll say that at that star party that we threw on that Wednesday night, we had our 8-inch Dob set out. It's easy to use, easy to bring. And right next to it was the same exact telescope. And I'm looking around, who brought that telescope? It was Mr. Bless's science teacher there that I didn't have the opportunity to learn under him, but he was just next door, and he had his own telescope at home. He brought it to that event, and we founded that club just after that night. And to this day, he still emails me. He reads my monthly newsletter that I write about space and astronomy, and he's currently teaching now at an elementary school that's right down the street from me. So he emailed me a few weeks ago, and we're throwing more star parties at the elementary school that I live a few blocks down from. So I think I just wanted to share that story of a school kind of founding an astronomy club and going from there. And you've seen where it comes now. We have a high school club from that start.
I think one of the most important things that clubs do is be available. So as part of the Seattle Astronomical Society, I see emails from schools and organizations saying, "Hey, we want to host an event. Can you bring some telescopes and host an event?" So that's schools that are aware and they're reaching out. People will donate telescopes. People will show up to star parties and bring their telescopes so that we can help them understand how to use their telescope. That is other people interacting with the club because the club is available. But the other aspect that a club needs to do is outreach. I think there is a lot of value in the clubs reaching out to the schools and saying, "Hey, we're available, we're a resource, would it help? Do you want us to come and do something with you?" Because people don't know. 2018, I had an internship with NASA in Virginia, so I was at Langley Research Center. And I'm an astronomer, so I wanted to get involved with the astronomy group. I'm at a NASA center. There's thousands of people who are focused on space, and the astronomy club was about a dozen people. That shocked me, that the astronomy club would be so small, and I think it comes back to that knowledge. People were not aware that it was an option, that there was a club available. And that's why I think the clubs need to both focus on being available, but also on outreach.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. We are running low on time. I'm not sure if there's another talk at 4, but we do have to.
But we might have a brief instant for the other two of you if you've got
Okay.
any ideas on that last question.
I think from my personal experience and what I've seen is that the clubs really want to help, and I'm the outreach director for my astronomy club. So we've gone to schools. Well, not we've written to schools, and we asked them, "Do you want this?" And some of them, it's like either it's like against their policy or they have like some other problem, and they just say no. And I think it's kind of I think the clubs want to help. I think the schools just have to be willing to have them there to just give people the experience.
Yeah, so I personally haven't had experience in doing like this specific outreach for amateur telescope making, but I was part of the observational astronomy club at my college, and I think for any club at a college, again, kids graduate every 4 years, right? So there's a lot of turnover, but like trying to keep the like institutional knowledge and the next people to like carry on the club, I think really depended on giving the right amount of responsibility to like the new members. And I think a big part of, again, club longevity is just and being able to like trust the next, like the new people to like take on some responsibilities, for example, start teaching classes and things like that, and then they'll become invested. But again, that's just from my experience in my observational astronomy club.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and thank you all for being here today, being part of the panel. I'd like to thank you all for watching. I'm going to give it over to the next speaker. I don't want to chew up too much of his time. But thank you again.